anger or fear. The Arhat's experience of Nibbana is not only a state of perfect happiness, but it's also a state of unshakable peace. This peace comes about through the stilling of all the defilements. The Buddha says that the defilements are fevers, vexations, disturbances. They cause trouble and anxiety in the mind. The unenlightened mind, the mind which still harbors the defilements, is always underlaid by a deep-rooted agitation, by a fundamental restlessness, by a basic lack of peace. Sometimes the mind is agitated about the past, worrying about things that have been done in the past. Sometimes it's worrying about things in the future, things that lie ahead. Sometimes it's worrying what's going on elsewhere in the present. But so often the mind is agitated, anxious, or worried. But with the abandoning of all forms of attachment, with the relinquishing of all craving and clinging, then there comes complete freedom from agitation, restlessness, and worry. That is Nibbana, the state of unruffled peace. Nibbana is also a state of complete fearlessness. All fear comes from the notion of a self, an ego. When we become afraid, what we're really afraid of is that something is going to happen to me, to myself, or to those things that I believe belong to me. And as long as there is this notion of an I, a self, lurking in the background of the mind, then we remain vulnerable to fear and to worry. But when the notion of an ego has been uprooted and completely destroyed, so that the sense of I-ness no longer hangs over our experience, then there comes liberation from all fear. The Buddha says that there are two beings who cannot be frightened by the crashing of a thunderbolt. One is the elephant, the other is the Arhat. The elephant isn't frightened because of his powerful body, also because of his small intelligence. But the Arhat is not frightened because he is completely free from all self-attachment. Therefore the Buddha calls Nibbana the state of complete security, Kema Bhumi, or the supreme security from turmoil. And he also calls it the fearless state, the state of fearlessness. Again, from the emotional angle, Nibbana can be viewed as a state of perfect equanimity. The Arhat looks upon all things with complete equality, with perfect balance of mind. He's no longer swayed by personal preferences. He no longer indulges in false distinctions and discriminations. The untrained mind is generally shaken by the changes of the world, what's called the 8 worldly winds, which come in 4 pairs. These are gain and loss, fame and dishonor, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Generally, we're attached to gain, fame, praise, and pleasure, and we're distressed by loss, dishonor, blame, and pain. But the mind of the Arhat is unshaken by all of these winds of worldly changes. His mind is steady like a mountain of solid rock, steady and unmoving. In all circumstances, the mind of the Arhat, the liberated one, is imperturbable. He doesn't go running after gain, honor, praise, and pleasure. He doesn't become upset if he meets loss, dishonor, blame, and pain. He looks upon all these different states as though they were the same. None of them gets an inner grip or a hold upon his mind. However, it has to be emphasized that this equanimity of the Arhat doesn't amount to indifference or apathy. It doesn't mean that the Arhat is unconcerned with the welfare of others. Sometimes in the later Buddhist literature, especially of the Mahayana, the Arhats have been depicted as cold and indifferent people concerned only with their own salvation. This picture, however, doesn't agree with the impressions of the Arhat that we get from the Pali Canon. In the Pali text, the Buddha emphasizes again and again that the Supreme Person, the most praiseworthy person, is the one who is intent on both his own welfare and the welfare of others. The disciple, first of all, has to accomplish the goal for himself. Only when he's on dry land by himself can he lift others out of the mud. Only when he's liberated himself can he effectively teach and guide others to liberation. But those who reach the goal, who achieve deliverance, they become the teachers and guides for their fellow men. The Buddha says that the Arahants are living in the world for the welfare of the many folk, for the happiness of the many folk, out of compassion for the world, for the good welfare and happiness of all living beings. He says that the Arhants are instructors, exhorters, who exhort, inspire, and encourage others who are capable of expounding the true Dhamma. He says that it is beneficial even to see such persons, to approach them, to serve them, to call them to mind, to study under them, and to practice under them. He says that the Arhants are the masters, the caravan leaders, the purifiers, the dispellers of darkness, the creators of light, the torch-bearers, the sons of illumination for all the world. The Arhat's mind is stirred by immeasurable loving kindness and boundless compassion. He pervades all the world with thoughts of loving kindness, thinking, "May all beings be well and happy." And he radiates thoughts of compassion, wishing that all beings might be free from suffering, from all harm and trouble. Now this deals with the experience of Nibbana in terms of feeling and emotion. Now to deal with it in terms of will, or volition. In our ordinary experience, the will is held in bondage by the defilements. We move and act in the grip of the defilements, and therefore we're driven to act in ways which we know to be harmful even to our own welfare. Under the sway of greed, hatred, delusion, and fear, we act even contrary to our own best interests. Because of our greed and desire, we chase after transitory pleasures, even though we know that in the long run these will have disastrous